Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and you are now over 1,000 times more likely to find an uber unique item out in the wild in Diablo 4. And you're also able to craft them yourself now. We also had this week a leak for the start date of the Gauntlet. That's the upcoming leaderboard activity for Diablo 4. We're going to talk about all of that in this video, but we're also going to cover some other gaming news of the week, including Xbox finally addressing the rumors that they're exiting the console business. And we'll also talk about some PlayStation hardware leaks. But before we dive into that, just a quick word from this video's sponsor. I built my website Rhykker.com using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily and with zero education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Watch how easily I updated the Diablo lore section on my website to include my latest lore videos. Squarespace is flexible for any kind of website, with tons of templates that you can easily customize to your needs. No knowledge of coding required. And with their new fluid engine, it's easier than ever. You just drag and drop elements to move and resize them. You can even set up a custom merch shop with Squarespace now. You just design your products, and they handle production, inventory, shipping, all that stuff that would just be a nightmare to handle on your own. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. It's the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. Stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything. Your products, content you create, even your time. And Squarespace is offering my viewers 10% off your first purchase with them. Just go to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to start your free trial and start building your online presence. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker to get started today. So kicking things off with some Diablo 4 news, we got this week the release of a patch that adds a new feature to the game, the ability to break down uber uniques in order to craft an uber unique of your choice. Now the devs had first hinted at this a couple of weeks ago by telling us to hang on to our extra uber uniques, and at the time what I expected was a feature would come that would allow us to break down 3 uber uniques to create 1 uber unique of our choice. Turns out I was pretty close, but the ratio wasn't 3-to-1, but actually 5-to-1. So basically you can break down an uber unique and it gives you a crafting material. You need 5 of those crafting materials to then craft an uber unique of your choosing. And if I'm to be honest, once I saw the ratio was 5-to-1, my first thought was, who is this feature for? It takes on average about 50 Duriel runs to get 1 uber unique. That's the drop rates that are estimated, about 2% drop rate when you kill uber Duriel to get an uber unique. Meaning, to a first approximation, on average you need to do 250 Duriel runs to get 5 uber uniques that you don't need in order to then turn those into uber unique that you do need. And that's assuming you aren't unlucky, in which case you could be doing hundreds of Duriel runs before you collect 5, like was my case. Now, each class only has a selection of about 5, max 6 uber uniques that it could even find. So this is basically a pity system for people who are grinding the game pretty heavily, to have done hundreds of Duriel runs and have had the bad luck of basically finding one of everything other than the uber unique that you want. So that's great. It's a good feature. It helps those people. But it just feels like such a small segment of the player base is going to benefit from this. People who are already playing the game quite heavily, but not quite so heavily that they don't mind doing several hundred Duriel runs to eventually get the drop that they want. Because let's face it, no matter how unlucky they are, the hardcore blaster type players, they're still going to get all of their uber uniques within a couple of weeks max, even without this system. So again, we're hitting upon this very narrow band of people that aren't the most hardcore players, but are still hardcore enough to have found 5 uber uniques. A ratio of 3-to-1 seems like something that has a chance of helping more casual players. I've also seen ideas like breaking down regular uniques into a crafting material, and it can take, 50 of those to make 1 uber unique, or maybe it costs 100 and 1 uber unique breaks down into 20 of the material. Just ideas to have some way of having the system be able to touch a wider portion of the player base. Now, I don't personally know what the best solution here is. All I know is anytime an uber unique drops, it should never be a feels bad moment for a player. It should always be exciting. These are the rarest most exciting drops in the game. And I don't mind them being super rare, but if I get one of these to drop, as I have, it should always be a feels good moment. In other games, the solution they have is that, well, maybe you can't use it yourself, but you can trade this on the market. You know you're going to get rich, so you're still excited, even though you're never going to use it, because you know this translates into a whole lot of currency that you can then use to get what you want. Again, that's just one solution, not necessarily for Diablo 4. It's not the only solution. Off the top of my head, an idea would be maybe the game keeps track of which Uber Uniques have already dropped for you. Maybe you have to keep them in your inventory or your stash or something for the game to know, okay, these are the ones that you have. And as long as you have those in your stash, that same Uber Unique won't drop for you until you have one of all of them. This way, okay, I get an Andariel's Visage to drop. Cool. I'm never going to use that. But hey, I just improved my odds that the next time I get an Uber Unique, I'm going to get a Shako. Now you may say, well, that's basically just the current system that they've added. Eventually, you're going to be able to get what you want. But it's not the same, because with the current system, it doesn't help you at all until you've gotten 5 Uber Uniques. Then it guarantees you the one you want. The system that I just proposed incrementally helps you by improving your odds with every Uber Unique that you collect. Now you might say, well, what if I actually want duplicates of an Uber Unique? I want multiple Shakos for all my characters. Okay, there's ways of getting around it. Maybe you hit favorite on it, and now that doesn't count for purposes of a duplicate. It doesn't remove that item from the pool. This is just an idea off the top of my head. I'm not suggesting implementing this exactly. I put all of 5 seconds of thought into this. It's just an example of one way to ensure you still get a feels good moment anytime an Uber Unique drops. There's other ways to do it. But for instance, in this system, if the next Uber Unique you drop is the one that you want, then you're gonna feel like, it's because I got the one that I didn't want previously that helped my odds to get the one I wanted. Yes, thank you, Andes, you useless piece of garbage, for helping me get my Shako. You weren't so useless after all. As opposed to, with the current system, you found 4 bad Uber Uniques, and then on the 5th Uber Unique that drops, well, you actually got your Shako. So now, well, you're happy you got your Shako, but now those 4 other Uber Uniques you got, those were completely useless to you. But what do you folks all think about this? I realize I might be sounding a bit harsh here, and I don't mean to be. Let me be explicit. This system is a good change. I'm just wondering if it could have been a better change, but still, definitely something good that has been added to the game. Now, on top of that change, the new system, they've also increased the drop rates of Uber Uniques outside of the Uber Duriel encounters, because we've had people complaining that they're sick of doing Duriel runs, so they're, again, helping the odds of you finding it outside of those Duriel runs. The odds of getting them outside of those Duriel runs have been incredibly low, so there've been a lot of jokes of, well, 2 times 0 is still 0, my odds aren't really any better. The devs didn't specify by how much they were increasing the rates, but I have seen mentions here and there, a couple people saying they have found an Uber Unique now out in the wild. But according to a data mine, apparently the drop rate is over 1,000 times better now. So the odds previously were something like 1 in 10 million, which means that now the odds would be about 1 in 10,000. Some people say that still means you're never going to find one, but that seems like an incredible increase to the odds right there. Again, this update is just less than a week old. I think by the end of season, we're going to be hearing a lot of people have got an Uber Unique to drop, at least one, outside of Duriel, by season's end. Then in other Diablo 4 news, we got word this week that the game is coming to Game Pass on March 28th. Given Microsoft now owns Blizzard, this was expected to happen sooner rather than later. And what this means basically is that if you are a Game Pass subscriber, if you're paying for that, then you don't have to pay for Diablo 4 to play it. Meaning I expect to see a lot of new players around this time. And I'm actually thinking this isn't great timing. Season 3 is expected to end April 16th, so this is, 2-3 weeks before the end of the season, when things are relatively dead. Season 4 is also when the itemization rework is supposed to launch, which will hopefully mean a significant step forward for the game, and therefore an ideal time to present this game to a new audience, right? When you've done your fix of the biggest issue that people have been griping about. A late March release means we're getting the tail end of Season 3. There will be the Gauntlet, but new players are now going to face the same itemization problems that we've been facing for months. And then just a couple weeks later, we're going to get the itemization rework. That's going to be confusing to new players. Now, of course, this is assuming that itemization 2.0 isn't pushed back. A lot of people are speculating that it will be delayed beyond Season 4. Well, I hope that's not the case. I would rather they delay it and ensure that it's perfect than launch it prematurely. And speaking of the Gauntlet, we still don't have an official release date, although we did have, I guess you can call it a leak. A date of February 27th was temporarily posted on the official website before being taken down within hours. So this suggests to me that it was planned to be the 27th, but for them to retract this, I'm thinking it's going to be later than the 27th at this point. Previously, I thought they were targeting February 20th, but given we haven't gotten an announcement yet, it's not going to be that soon. And now if it's also not going to be the 27th, I guess that takes us to March 5th. And that's significantly later than I expected. That's well past the halfway mark of the season. As an update, we actually got some notice from Adam Fletcher that next week they're going to be announcing the official date and time for a campfire chat. That'll be focused on showcasing the Gauntlet as well as the mid-season updates, which will include lots of class updates and will also bring the Gauntlet. Adam Fletcher also confirmed that the itemization rework is not delayed, it's still coming in Season 4, and we're going to get a brief update on how that is going. Alright, moving on to some Xbox news. We reported last week that Xbox was looking to release some of its most prized exclusive titles on PlayStation. That was according to some rumors at least. And that was leading a lot of people to wonder, including myself, whether Microsoft was looking to get out of the console business altogether and just become a software business. No more hardware. Well, this week, they hosted an official Xbox podcast during which they spoke about the future of Xbox. Turns out some of the rumors and leaks were true, others not so much. They did confirm that 4 Xbox Studios games are coming to other platforms, but they didn't say which games those would be. They did suggest it would be the devs themselves that would be announcing it, so it's not that they were being coy, it's that they wanted to reserve the right to make this announcement to the devs, which is a nice guy move. They did, however, confirm that neither Starfield nor the upcoming Indiana Jones games are coming to other platforms. They're not one of those 4, so this goes against some of the rumors. As for the worries about Xbox exiting the hardware space, seems that won't be the case. Xbox is still investing into hardware, and apparently will have an announcement in that regard coming up this holiday season. And this also seems to be in addition to the next-gen Xbox, which is said to be, quote, the largest technical leap you've ever seen in a hardware generation. So not only are they not making another Xbox, their next Xbox is going to be the most kick-ass Xbox ever, hopefully. They also confirmed that Xbox will be releasing 10 games this year, including Hellblade 2 and Indiana Jones. And more news can be expected from the Xbox showcase in June. Meanwhile, Sony also shared some news this week during their latest financial results briefing. They seem to continue to believe in their strategy to release more exclusive titles on PC. That is, not just on PlayStation, but also on PC. And this strategy was first revealed 2 years ago. At the time, they said that half of their releases would be on PC and mobile by 2025. This week, Sony's president confirmed his belief that first-party games can be grown with multi-platform releases in order to help operating profit improve. In other words, they're staying the course with this strategy. We're going to be seeing more PC releases of PlayStation exclusive games. But they also reveal that they will not be releasing any new major existing franchise titles before March 31st, 2025. Meaning we're not going to see a Ghost of Tsushima 2 before then, no new Spider-Man, no new God of War or Horizon game. But that does suggest that we can see some new IPs launch this year. Meanwhile, leaks from YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead, who has previously leaked PlayStation hardware details, suggests that Sony will continue its partnership with AMD for the PS6, which will support 4K at 120 FPS or 8K at 60 FPS. And we know from court documents during the FTC versus Microsoft case that Sony isn't planning to release the PS6 until at least 2027. Then, in some Baldur's Gate 3 news, a patch was expected to release this week, which would include, quote, improved smooches, new camp idle animations, new legendary actions in honor mode, and plenty of bug fixes. The patch was said to be a hefty one, 21 gigabytes in size, and requiring 150 gigs of free space for PC and Steam Deck. And the devs advised to just uninstall and reinstall the game completely if you're short on space. There was a lot of speculation that the patch would hit on Valentine's Day given the smooching, but when Valentine's Day came and went with no patch, players got antsy and started to poke and prod, resulting in some meme answers back from the devs as to when they would release the patch, and the patch ultimately released yesterday at the very end of the week, and seems to have been well received by players. Meanwhile, according to a Bloomberg report, Hasbro has made about $90 million off of Baldur's Gate 3 so far. And this is because Baldur's Gate is owned by the company that owns Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, who in turn are owned by Hasbro. So rough estimates here suggest Baldur's Gate 3 has sold about 20 million copies across all platforms, which is just absolutely incredible for a turn-based old-school RPG. Moving on to some rapid-fire news here. Path of Exile, the devs give us an update on the 3.24 expansion timeline. They're targeting late March for the release, meaning the current Affliction League will last longer than usual. Although these extensions are starting to become the usual, I suppose. They also stated that they are not planning to run end-of-league events this time around. In some quick last Epoch news, the devs have celebrated 1 million sales during early access. With a full launch happening on February 21st, just in a few days from now, I'm expecting this number to rapidly rise. I think that these guys can hit 5 million sales. And the only recurring criticism that I hear about this game whenever I bring it up is that the graphics don't stand up to AAA graphics. But I encourage those of you who feel that way to give the game another look. They've really been improving the visuals over the years of development. Like, it's night and day difference going back a couple of years. And the launch patch is bringing even more visual updates, with revamped enemy models and new armor sets. In some quick Palworld news, it seems that, according to their Japanese Twitter account, the devs have found themselves severely understaffed and are looking for new developers to join their team. Given how big and how fast the game grew, that's really no surprise. They got a hit game on their hands, but gamers are fickle. If they want to keep the steam going, they want to keep that momentum, they need to crank out updates. If you're interested in joining their studio, just know that you need to at least speak a basic level of Japanese in order to work with them. And, probably have some game development talent too. And lastly, in some quick Lethal Company news, and yes, I do play this game with my friends. It's just a silly fun game. The dev recently stated on Twitter that he's slowly working on the next update, and while he could have released it already, he wants it to be really substantial. In fact, he's considering generally updating the game less often, but ensuring that each update is bigger. He said, quote, "I really want content updates to Lethal Company to feel like I broke into an alien zoo and released all the animals." And that's going to wrap up this video. But do be sure to check out my recent video comparing some of last Epoch's features to Diablo 4's. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters, and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.